Welcome back to my sewing room. Um, it's pretty cold here right now in the United States. I think almost everybody in the whole country is feeling this Arctic blast. I had -1 at my house this morning, so I've got my heavy wool sweater on top of another sweater, helping keep me warm here. So I hope all you guys are staying warm too. And so today I just kind of wanted to talk about several different things. One of them is at the end of every year, I print out pictures of all of the quilts I've made for that year. I use Shutterfly. I don't know that it's the necessarily like the best app, but I started using it like when it first came out, so that's just where all my pictures are right now. So every time I finish a quilt, I take several pictures of it and then I upload it onto Shutterfly, and then at the end of the year I get them all printed out so that I have a hard copy of all of my pictures. So this is what I got this year, and I made 16 quilts. So I will write on the back of them just the date, just the year is good enough for me. And then I keep them in a big binder here, which is almost full. So I need to get another one. So I have page protectors in here, and so I have a record in here of all of the quilts that I've made. Well, I shouldn't say all. Every once in a while one gets by me that I just somehow don't have a picture of. It happens. But and I don't have these even in any particular order, but it is nice to be able to go back and kind of reference ones that I've made. And if somebody would ask me, like, have you ever made a quilt like that before? I can say, yeah, I did, and then I have a picture of it. So I did make a lot of different quilts. This is one, this is the Burgoyne Surrounded that I was telling you about before, that I don't have anymore that I wish I still had. So that might be on my list of things to make this year. So you can see it's full. I have a lot of pictures in here. So I usually try and get a couple of close-ups. I also try to get a picture of the back of the quilt because a lot of the backs of my quilts are pieced also. And so that I think too, just in case something would happen to a quilt where, you know, it might get lost in the mail or something, you know, if I'm sending it to somebody, if I have to verify that that quilt is mine, you know, if it's just like a checkerboard quilt, that could be anybody's, but because I have a picture of the back of the quilt too, not everybody's going to have that same back on their quilt, I guarantee you. So that's what I have to do yet. I still have to label all of these here and put those in there. It's just another way I kind of keep track of everything that I've done. And then behind me here on the door is my most recent finish. This one took me 16 days to hand quilt, and it's my Orphan block quilt. And there were some blocks in there that were very challenging to do because of the types of fabrics that were used, and because I try to put you know, a generous amount of quilting on it. I could get by, you know, with a lot less, but I kind of like them. I like the way they feel. I like the way they drape. I like the way they look if they have a little bit more quilting on. So in a little bit, I'm going to take this down off the door, and we'll kind of go through it and talk about it. Okay, everybody, here's my newest finish. I'm really excited about this one. This is my Orphan block quilt. I've been working on this for a while. And so I'm gonna kind of walk you through some of the things that I do when I make these, and I'll point out the blocks that have special meaning to me. So I'll start up at the top here. On the top row here, I have, starting over here, this one, and actually this one, they're very similar. These were made, both of these were made by my sister, back in the day, in the 90s, 1990s, they had these little foundation paper piece patterns that were called Granny's Nannies. And both she and I were like making these like crazy at the time because it was like a new thing and you could get so precise with your points. And so she had made these and she had given these to me, but at the time I was making a lot of them for myself also. So at some point, and I don't remember this, I gave these, they were finished like this. I gave them to a friend of mine because she was interested in them too. Well, not interested enough to really pick it up and run with it. She's held on to these for all these years, well over 20 years. And she was just cleaning out her sewing room and she brought them to me and she's like, I think maybe you made these. Do you want these back? And it's like, as soon as I saw them, I knew my sister had made them. So I said, yeah, that'd be great. So I took them back and now they're in a quilt. So, and now I'm like super excited about them again. So sometimes you have to just put things away for a little while, like 20 years, I guess, and then you get excited about it again. So those were made by my sister. This one here and this one here, my sister also made these. She used this as like a fussy cut piece of fabric here because this reminded her of like Pennsylvania Dutch imagery. And I live in Pennsylvania Dutch region. And that really does kind of, you know, look like a lot of the artwork and images that we have in this area. So she made those for me. And then this too was just a little patch I had in my collection. And an orphan block, I think, is a great place to tuck little things like that. And then, let's see, here's a little piece of embroidery here that I did, that I tucked in. Sometimes I just like to embroider and I'll just do like maybe a little tiny image like that, not knowing at all when they're going to show up in a quilt. So that one found a home. This one here, the hula girl, on both ends here. This was actually a little tote bag that I got at my 25-cent sale. And so I took that apart just because I thought it was just cute. So yeah, so that made it in. And then moving down a little, this one and this one I got at a sale where they have whole tables just full of orphan blocks. And I like the bear paw pattern. These were not perfect at all, but I just kind of, I don't know, there's just something about those that draws me to them because they're not perfect. You know, I can't explain it, but I just kind of feel more connected to it. And then this Dresden, and that, they were all made by the same person. I got those also at the orphan block sale. And the blocks were very large, much larger, I thought, than they needed to be. So I cut them down, and you can see now they're more rectangular. And I don't know if you can notice, I did try to put different quilting on each one of them. And then this Dresden here, this was also just a discarded orphan block. And you can see at the edge, these were actually like turned under to the back for some reason that I just couldn't unpick. So yeah, so a lot of those points got chopped off, and then this patch was given to me. So that made it on. I thought the center of that was a good place for the birds. And then down in the next row here, we have these 3 red blocks here that I feel like they were made from the same person. I bought those all on the same day at the orphan block sale. And sometimes when I do quilts like this, to add more interest, I might use a different color of quilting thread in some places. So on this one, I used a lot of red stitching along here. I mean, it's kind of throughout. I kind of sprinkled it throughout. So this one has red stitching here, and some of it's hard to see. I know there's some up in here too. And this part in here, I did some big stitching with some crochet thread, and that was a variegated thread. So that's why you can kind of see sometimes it almost looks white, but sometimes you can see the green coming through more. And then over here, again, you can see some of the red stitching that I put here on the bottom and the top here. Around here I have some red stitching, and up in here between these little 9 patches. So it is kind of sprinkled throughout the quilt. And then with this one, this was also an Orphan block. When I bought it, it was just the embroidered cat. And then I did a chain stitch in crochet cotton. And so I applied this afterwards, like, you know, before I put the block in this quilt. So I just kind of wound it around and just tacked it down as I went to make it look like a ball of yarn. So I think that's cute. And then going down to the next row here, there are a couple of basket quilts, basket blocks in this row, and a nice butterfly block. This one here was machine stitched, and this one was hand stitched, which I kind of would have thought this one might almost be easier to hand stitch because these blocks are small. But it's interesting to see when you buy old blocks how they were constructed. And then, oh, here's a little bit of basting thread left over. And then this block here, this is appliqued on top with just a straight stitch on top around the outside of it. And some of these little pieces here, these tiny little 9 patches here, I just take them out of my shoe boxes, you know, to use as fillers in between things. And like these little strips, this is my really small crumbs here that I get out of the wicker basket that I have on my table. And again, this is a good place to put things like that. Here's a little bit of embroidery that I had done also. And then down to the last row, over here is a piece of batik that I got. I don't remember where I got that one. I thought I got that from one of my friends, but she said she doesn't think so. And then I have, in this row, there are 2 blocks that are called Rolling Stone, and those are really old fabrics. And again, you can see the points are going to get cut off. I mean, that was nothing that I could possibly save. There was just a lot there. You know, I mean, this one looks okay down here, but this one, there was no saving that one. Again, that doesn't bother me. I know there are some, you know, sticklers out there who would like take the whole thing apart and reconstruct it. But when I'm dealing with Orphan blocks, I keep things like that. I personally kind of like that personal touch in it. And then this block, and then this block, and then one on the end. Those are 3 that I did get from a friend of mine. She was cleaning out her sewing room, and she asked me if I wanted them. I don't know what their original purpose was. It was almost like they were, I don't know, like a bandana almost. I'm not sure, but they were really cute. And there were I think there were 4 in the series, but she only had 3 because there is a number on them at the very end here at the bottom. So I think I have like 1 and 3 and 4 or something. And then this one here, my daughter made, and she hand dyed the fabric. And what did you use to dye it?
Kutch.
Kutch. And she didn't like the difference in the colors, so she gave that to me. So that's in here now. And right here in this room, there's a whole stack of blocks like this because she's gonna make a quilt for herself. And she assembled this on a treadle sewing machine. Up until that point, all of the sewing that she's done, all the quilts that she's made have all been made by hand. No sewing machine at all. So now she has a treadle. So now she's coming into the modern world. So there's a lot of blocks in here that that means something to me. You know, when I have a quilt like this, you know, I like to look at all the differences in the blocks and stuff. And then let me show you the back quickly. I did have to put a piece in the back. And so these were leftovers from, I made a tie quilt, and I had leftover pieces from the ties. And so I started making these blocks with the leftover pieces from the ties. And so I put them on the back of this. In my last video, I got out all my shoe boxes, and I showed you what I have in all of them as far as like keeping my scraps organized and everything. And I know what I have in all of those boxes. But when I got all of them out at once and looked at them all, I honestly felt a little overwhelmed. Because if you look in one shoebox at a time, it's, you know, I'm not like alarmed at anything I have. And it's just a shoebox, so it's not that big. But seeing all of them all at once like that made me realize I have some work to do here. I have to, just for my own peace of mind, I have to keep that under control a little bit better. So what I decided to do was like, there's one box specifically that I know I just want to clear that out and get rid of everything in there and make something, because I just don't keep my scraps that way anymore. That system isn't working for me. But the others, like my 2.5-inch strip box, was kind of getting to the point anyway where I needed to do something with them. And so I think I'm just going to kind of work through some of my boxes like one at a time. And my goal isn't to like use every single thing up in the boxes. That's not how scraps work. You're just always getting more, always adding to it. You take some out, you use them, others go in, you know, and it's just a constant flow all the time. So anyway, that's like one of my plans right now, is to sort of go through these boxes and do something with some of them so that it's not so overwhelming for me. So one of the things that I did since we spoke last was I made this quilt top. This came out of my 2.5-inch strip box. This one actually turned out bigger than I thought it would be. I made a full quilt like this last year, but yeah, so this is going to go to charity. My sister belongs to a quilt guild, and they do a lot of charity work. So I already spoke to her, and she said that they would gladly take these tops. So I'm just making the tops. I'm not going to invest my time in finishing all of these. Like I said, I already have a quilt like this, so this one will go to charity. This is 7 blocks across by 7 down, so there are 49 blocks altogether. And I make strip sets. I sew 5 different strips together and then cut them into 2.5-inch wide strips, and then just pair it with just background white. So it's pretty easy. This was a free pattern online somewhere. I don't remember who originally had it. I don't write things down like that. So that's one of them. So I did just put that one together, and it did use up quite a few scraps from my 2.5-inch box. So I still have a good amount in there, but I already have like another project planned for some of the darker scraps that are in there. So that's quilt top number 1. This one has kind of been in progress for a while. These were all just single blocks laying in a pile, so I kind of knew I had them, but I just didn't put them together. And then when I saw them, I realized I just made this quilt for myself. So it's actually downstairs. I'm actually hand quilting it right now, but the one I made for myself, each of these is smaller than this one here is. This started with 2.5-inch strips. And the one that I have downstairs, I started with 2-inch strips that all finish at 1.5. So this is the second one that is going to go to charity. It's nice and bright and colorful. And then I have one more. And this one, some strings here. This one was, I had a grand plan to make a triple Irish chain, or double Irish chain, excuse me, and using all of my little tiny 1-inch finished pieces. Because I had done this before and I used a white background, and I mean, it's a great use for really little tiny pieces. So I kind of was thinking at that time, it's like, I use white all the time for a background. You know, I thought I'll just try something different. And so when I saw this, I thought, well, that's kind of like a neutral color. And so I started making blocks and started making blocks. And then when I laid them all out, I was like, ew, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So I stopped. And by that time I had enough blocks made that I thought, you know what, I'm just going to make a top out of it. And this one will go to charity too. So that's what this one looks like. And that's the story behind this one. It's not very often that I really change my mind halfway through a project, but it has happened before. And I'm just kind of at the point where I just cut my losses, call it finished, and it will go to charity, you know, because I know that somebody else won't have the same feelings about it that I do. So that's this one. So that's it. I have 3 finished, and I plan to have one more finished before I send these out to her. And then her guild, if there's any borders that need to be put on or backing, they'll do that, and then they will machine quilt it and make sure that it goes to a good home. So that's it for my charity quilts. So that's all I've got for you today. I've been pretty busy in my sewing room. This is the time of year when I am the most busy because it's winter and I'm just indoors a lot. So I hope that everybody out there, I hope that you're enjoying your time in your sewing room too. I hope you're being very productive and creative too. And I'll see you next time. Bye.